Nick Arcana, I have one question for you, sir.
What's that?
Do you read Sutter Kane? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, folks. I'm trying to get the agent's voice from In the Mouth of Madness. Do you read Sutter Kane?
That's a little better.
A little bit better? Okay.
Yeah, that was a little better.
Should have had you ask me because that's like you're better with doing those impersonations. So anyways, but that even before I had really watched In the Mouth of Madness like closely, I saw that online a lot. That was like a meme. Do you read Sutter Kane? I would always hear that and be like, well, where's that from? And come to find out, of course, it's from In the Mouth of Madness. Sutter Kane, if those now look, in terms of fictional book series, I don't think I would ever read the Misery books if they were real. But I would probably be one of the people buying the Sutter Kane books. I mean, it's horror, monsters, Stephen Kingish, R.L. Steinish. I'd probably be reading them Sutter Kane books.
I put him more with Lovecraftian than Stephen King or R.L. Stein.
I don't think so. I think maybe towards the end of his books they got more Lovecraftian, but I think those first couple books must have been because the way they described it in the movie at least was like trashy horror novels. Like I feel like they were more meant to be appeal to as many people as possible. So they were probably dumbed down in like generic monster books, but then slowly they got more advanced. But you can't hook the mainstream with Lovecraftian would be too specific to like hook the mainstream. Like you have to dumb it down and have a very simple story. So I feel like Sutter Kane wouldn't have got as popular as he was if those books were that Lovecraftian. So even this movie, because Lovecraftian, was never going to be a big hit movie. This wasn't going to be like In the Mouth of Madness made $100 million. The story is too specific and complex. Like people want a dumbed down Goosebumps, Camp Blood, Monster Blood, Say Cheese and Die. You know, whatever your favorite Goosebumps books is. That's what America wants. They want the McDonald's burger. They don't want the mom and pop, well-made, cooked-to-order burger that's better. They want the Happy Meal. So
actually, I want the well-cooked, professionally made medium burger.
The person does, but the people, they'll line up at the McDonald's drive-thru knowing they're paying for an inferior burger. So you got to get them hooked with McDonald's, and then the McDonald's menu can start putting some Lovecraftian milkshakes.
Could you imagine getting a milkshake and like some tentacles are trying to wrap around your face?
Yes. Those first couple of Sutter Kane books, I'm sure, were like McDonald's, but then it started to at least become more like Five Guys towards the end. And wow, I don't think Lovecraftians are ever been given this level of analogy before. And that's because we're recording later in the day, folks. So our brains aren't working as they normally should. That's from a later start time.
Wait a minute. You have a brain?
Well, the brains that we do have.
I have a brain?
Well, okay. Now I'm starting to think maybe you have read too much Sutter Kane. It feels like your descent into madness has already began.
This is how I know I don't have a brain. I got married.
Well, listen, we're not going to go down that path because that sounds like a different type of video with a different topic.
That sounds like a therapy session, sir.
Yes, and my going rate, $3 per hour.
No, your going rate is to meet Sutter Kane and possibly be mind tortured by Mrs. Pickman with her snake arms chopping up her husband.
Well, let me give some quick background here because we, of course, recently reviewed Village of the Damned, and the movie he made right before then was In the Mouth of Madness. And some parts of Village of the Damned felt a little bit off to me, felt a little bit rushed. The movie felt rushed. It didn't feel quite up to the Carpenter standard. I think because of what I read was that basically he did take a long time on this movie. In fact, he spent months in the editing room getting all the sequences right, because he wanted to like kind of play with the idea of the audience scene to scene doesn't know what's reality, what's fictional stuff going on. So he spent a long time with the editing. I don't think he spent that much time on the editing for Village of the Damned, unfortunately.
I think Sam Neill knows what reality is. I mean, he had like 5 different scenes where he screams, "That's not reality."
Well, he's the perfect character for this movie because his whole thing is obviously he's insurance fraud investigator. So his whole job is to sniff out bullshit. People tell him a story. He determines if it's bullshit, goes collects his evidence. So he's like a skeptical hippo. So he's the perfect person to go on this journey. Because you're right. Even after he's seen a lot of crazy stuff, he's still being skeptical hippo. He's still like, no, this is not reality. I'm like, dude, you've seen a lot, but even by the end of the movie, he's still not convinced almost. So I don't know until he watches that movie in the theater at the end. I don't know if he's fully on board with like, but I regress. We're going to getting too deep in, but I do like this. From a writing standpoint, this was the right choice for the main character because it's going to take so much to convince him that we have to see so much crazy stuff for him to even come on board with this. Sam O'Neill, who most people will know him from Jurassic Park, of course, one of the biggest movies of all time, came out a year before this movie. But his relationship with John Carpenter was because they made a movie together before Jurassic Park called Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which really is a Chevy Chase film. But I guess Sam Neill was a side character. So him and Carpenter had a relationship from there. So then when Carpenter went to make this movie, of course, Sam O'Neill also coming off Jurassic Park. But after making Jurassic Park, you would think he would like want to go into like more like blockbuster type action movies, but he does this movie and then he does Event Horizon, which are both like super complex. Event Horizon is not Lovecraftian, but it's borderline that level of like messing with your mind. So he does those back to back. So we're talking about a real actor here, not somebody who's sold out to jump into Jurassic Park Part 2. This man started making some crazy Lovecraftian thinking man horror movies. Props to Sam O'Neill.
To be fair, are you saying Sam O'Neill?
Is it Sam Neill, right?
Yeah.
I thought for some reason I think it's Sam O'Neill.
I've never seen, maybe I'm blind, but I've never seen an O in his name.
Maybe I'm thinking of Shaquille O'Neal. All right. Well, let's see.
This tells us how tired we are. This is going to be, this probably was a bad idea.
This is perfect. We're talking about a movie about people's brains slipping into madness, and it's happening to us as we podcast about it. Nothing could be better of a setup than this. So,
also, you say Sam Neill wasn't really jumping into cash grabs because he jumped in with a John Carpenter movie and then Event Horizon. But I'd like to say that anyone jumping into a John Carpenter movie with that man's level of not only expertise but also notoriety, I'm pretty sure that would have been a cash grab if that movie even failed. But
so it's tricky because
remember, he did come back for Jurassic Park 3.
He did, and that, if I remember correctly, that was actually a long time after the first Jurassic Park. I think it was like into the 2000s when they came out with Jurassic Park 3, I believe. So, by the way, I love Jurassic Park 2. I'm saying that, but I do love Jeff Goldblum, so I have no problems with Jurassic Park 2 mainly focused on Jeff Goldblum's character. That would notwithstanding, but this is a weird time for John Carpenter because most people, when they talk about being a John Carpenter fan, they mostly cite most of his stuff from the 80s, to be honest. It's the run in the 80s. Halloween from 1978, but then really up until They Live 1988. That's kind of the run people consider. Into the 90s, so he had this Chevy Chase movie, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which critics hated, didn't make any money at the box office.
Sounds like a comedy.
And then, well, apparently the problem in the movie was the Vampire in Brooklyn thing where John Carpenter was like, okay, I'm making a comedy with Chevy Chase. And Chevy Chase was like, oh, I want to make a more serious thing. I want to change my ways. So same exact thing that Wes Craven dealt with Eddie Murphy, he dealt with Chevy Chase. Like the actor was like trying to go a new career direction. John Carpenter's like, no, I want to make a comedy with you. Like I want to do a comedy. And Chevy Chase is like, I want to be serious. So I haven't seen that movie, but apparently that was like the conflict there. So the movie didn't work. So then that's like 1991. So then 92, 93, he's trying to get some other projects, but because that movie with Chevy Chase had bombed, he wasn't really getting the same offers. And then 94, he does this short film. Oh, he does a movie called Body Bags, which is supposed to be this anthology film. And it's actually a really good anthology film. We can talk about that later on, but it's supposed to come to theaters, but then it ends up becoming a pilot episode on Showtime for supposedly a new series, but it never actually gets picked up. So it ends up being like kind of straight to video base essentially. So you get to 1994 and he's doing In the Mouth of Madness, but the name John Carpenter, unfortunately, at this exact point, doesn't have the same clout as even like 4 or 5 years prior. But I mean, listen, obviously he's still high respect. Otherwise, Sam Neill wouldn't agree to do the movie. Now the script for The Mouth of Madness, a little more interesting. So, the script is originally written back in 1989 by someone named Michael DeLuca, who's like a high-level executive. He was at New Line, and then I think he's at DreamWorks now, but he's been responsible for like a lot of hit movies as an executive. Now, as a writer, he wrote this movie
on shrooms.
There's one other movie. There's one other movie he wrote. He wrote this movie, and he wrote Freddy's Dead. Now, when you think about the two movies coming out of the same writer's brain, you definitely wouldn't be like, from the writer of Freddy's Dead comes In the Mouth of Madness. It doesn't really. You just don't think about it. You know?
And pot.
Well, with Freddy's Dead especially, yeah. But what's crazy is this movie, when he wrote this when he was 22 years old, apparently. Like, I can't imagine a 22-year-old having this level of ideas. I mean, listen, there's definitely, age doesn't mean anything in terms like your pure intellectual genius and all that. But I can't imagine a college kid like writing this movie, but 22 years old is pretty complex. Now, he wrote a version of this in 1989. Over the years, there was probably a lot of changes. By the time it gets to John Carpenter, he asked John Carpenter in 1989 to do it, and Carpenter at that time had the clout or buzz. It was like, no, it's a pretty good first draft, but I don't want to do that now. Now you get to 1994, he brings it back to Carpenter, and at this time, actually now, Michael DeLuca is also taken over as like one of the heads of New Line, high executive there. So now he has the clout to actually get his script made. It's because he's like in charge there. So represents it to Carpenter. Carpenter is like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. But Carpenter, as he always does, did do some rewrites and added his own stuff to the script as well.
What did he? Here's a question: what did he add? Because I'm wondering who's the person who added Lovecraftian stuff, because that would tell me who's a fan of those books.
So, from the behind the scenes stuff I've seen, it was already there in the first DeLuca thing. Okay. He already had the whole Lovecraftian thing in there, but that Carpenter himself is also a fan of Lovecraftian stuff. So they were both fans of it. So he probably maybe added some more stuff to it. I think Carpenter I'm guessing the script had a lot of stuff where Carpenter as the director had to like bring out the visuals though. So he had to like probably come up with like the set design. I mean, obviously the director. So I don't know how much was in the script. It would be very interesting to see the original DeLuca script from 1989 to see, okay, what does this 22-year-old have in mind? But we don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's any way to see that original script. But Carpenter was a fan of Lovecraft as well. Carpenter said basically that there was Lovecraftian stuff, but he also said that a lot of it's based on Stephen King, which Sutter Kane, obviously. At this time, 1994, Stephen King is obviously super popular author. And then
Kane looks almost like him.
Looks like him. Stephen King was from a small town in Maine. And then also I think back then, I think Carpenter said there was also like there was controversies back then about how much does like horror books or horror movies result in real world violence. So he said he was like in a way trying to touch on that also, like in a fun way of like the impact, because he was like there was like protest about horror books, and there's always been that talk about does that stuff lead to real world violence. So he's like, all right, well, this movie's about it literally causing the end of the world. So so it's kind of a play on that too. So.
Well, here's a question: what really caused the end of the world, the book or the movie?
Okay, so we'll get to that. So first, I don't know. I could probably watch like 11 video essays, listen to the director's commentary, watch the movie 5 times, there's still always new stuff to discover. I still don't know if I have a perfect handle on it because I haven't seen one thing really summarize the movie perfectly, I don't think. But I guess the idea is that there's some evil force that wants to come into our world. We'll call them the Lovecraftian monsters, tentacles and all. And the way to do that, I guess, is to spread fear or spread something through these books. And so Sutter Kane is going to be the vessel to write the books. And the more people that read the books, either the stronger the monsters get and they're able to more come into the world, or the stronger Sutter Kane gets and is able to basically the books start to become the reality and they all become one dimension, basically.
So there was a monologue Sutter King actually gave around the end when they were in the cathedral boxes, the confessionals, that he brings up that what causes the power is apparently faith, belief, more not really faith but belief.
Yep.
That's why this whole thing with Sutter Kane is all in a church, because it is because again your faith and belief give power to that religion. Whereas in this same form,
the belief in the books,
older ones are pretty much deities.
Yeah.
So a belief system is able to cause any kind of power, and most likely at the start, there's no real faith in them, but there is that belief because now the text on the page is being imprinted into your brain.
Right, and it means that also Sutter Kane is either a hell of a writer, or they're giving him the gift to write so well that it makes the books come to life in people's imaginations. We don't know.
So that really depends on how his first couple of books were. If his first books,
I'm telling you, they had to be very just trashy. Get as many people on board. Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, look, there's great mainstream books, but he had to be like, okay, this has to appeal to as many people as possible. We have to make the McDonald's burger. It had to be that way.
Yeah, so McDonald's burger.
I got you. Your takeaway was like, I'm hungry.
I mean, be fair, last time I ate was 5 hours ago.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
It's mainly because I actually lost my train of thought for a second there. So, and the last thing you said was McDonald's burger. I was like, gotcha. What was I thinking?
I gotcha. Okay. Well, so anyways, so where the movie begins, it's really not a linear story because we start off at the insane asylum with pretty much John Trent is already locked up or being taken to be locked up.
Remember, he kicked a guy in the balls.
He did, and they're gonna play the Carpenters music. I guess try to calm everybody down. He's like, not the Carpenters too. And then and then we get
funny little touch.
We get appearance by Sutter Kane. And if you on the first watch, it doesn't make sense because John Trent's like, this is a terrible way to end it. And he's like, Sutter's like, it's not the end. You haven't read it yet. At the beginning of the movie, watching that as an audience, like that doesn't make any sense. Now, after you watch the movie, you're like, okay, that makes sense now. He still refused to read the book. So he hasn't read the ending. So
I will say, because me and you have said this multiple times, normally we're not fans of us seeing the ending before we see the actual story, because it gives us something that we already now know what's going to happen. The only reason I agree to this is because it does add to the mystery when Sutter Kane does tell him you haven't read it yet. So it adds questions, and now when we get the actual story, it's going to answer those questions. So this is the one time that I know of that I actually like this kind of intro.
I know it's a good intro because on the second watch did it make sense to me. So it gave the movie some rewatchability because I was like, oh, these beginning scenes only really start to make more sense after we see the entire movie. It's really like the movie's like a puzzle that's being put together slowly as you watch it. But at the beginning, it's almost impossible to have any idea what the plot is here in the first like 15, 20 minutes. But we'll get basically, I guess a psychiatrist comes to the place to interview John Trent. And John Trent's going to basically tell a story now.
Yep,
Uh,
and the story is he's an insurance fraud agent who is hustling a man because that man just burnt down his whole factory in order to get the insurance money. And come to find out, never partner with your wife, and if you do, don't mess with her.
Double whammy, yeah. Although this seemed pretty harsh. Not only is he exposing his insurance fraud, but he ratted him out to his wife as well. Like he completely destroyed this guy's world altogether.
To be fair, that's I would assume that's actually pretty close to what they would have to do because you still got to get the full story before you can pass off the insurance
Um,
claim. So in
yeah,
order to
that's
get the full
true.
story, he's going to talk to this guy's partner, which he even says your partner was your wife. So yes, I talked to her.
Well, I guess the guy deserved the downfall. If he's being that much of a scammer and then also then cheating on his wife, he did deserve the downfall. So can't be mad at that. But he's given his next lead at a restaurant sit down with some guy who tells him, "Hey, this Sutter Kane thing, you should look into this pretty much." But the main thing that happens here is some dude and a really fun shot. Again, on the rewatch, you really focus on the across the street. You're like, "Hey, when does this do? When is like what's going on over there? Can I see the guy from the across the street earlier on?" But of course, we get a quick zoom in. Then the guy comes across the street, smashes the window with his axe, and then we get the famous "Do you read Sutter Kane?" Still
What
Kane's
I'm trying to
voice.
figure out is this guy's voice, and I looked it up and I couldn't find any reason why, but this guy's voice sound is like almost all so close to like the horror narrators for the trailers.
Right.
Like I said, I looked him up and I did not see him, and I couldn't pinpoint him in any other movie that I've seen him in. And it doesn't say he was that voice. So I'm thinking, why does your voice sound so familiar to me?
Yeah. I guess I mean, it's good casting because he has that voice, but then also he looks freaky too.
Well,
So
you can
we
blame the
gotta
makeup for that one.
yeah, but later on we find out this is Sutter Kane's agent. Now, in hindsight, we can look back and say, okay, we find out later on that him and Styles, the female that we'll meet soon, they were the only ones that were given advanced copies of the new Sutter Kane book. So the agent at this point has read his new book. I'm guessing recognizes John Trent and is at the stage of madness where he's like, okay, if I kill John Trent, I can stop the story. So this was no accident. Again, this only makes sense on the rewatch, but he comes across the street specifically to kill John Trent because he's read the story. Um, but the cops, I'm assuming in that moment, Sutter Kane is somewhere like, nope, can't have that, and writes in that the cops shoot him to shit.
Well, the thing I'm trying to figure out is so Sutter Kane obviously is able to rework everything around, but how is he able to see outside of his area? It's not like he would be able to. It's not like as he's writing, he's all of a sudden I guess his hand just automatically gets possessed and it's writing down what's happening. He goes, oh,
he,
gotcha.
he's definitely given a vision because he's going to be able to weave himself in and out of so many different scenes that it's clear that he does have some power there. And then they set that up well too because in the bookstore when John Trent goes to buy the book, the guy from the counter comes around and is basically like, he's watching you. He can see you. So the guy says it right there. So that just tells you also that they wrote in that Sutter Kane has some godlike ability to see everything, I guess. But
Also, you're
um,
telling me out of a diner full of people, not a single person looked outside the window and sees a crazy man coming with an axe? Because usually when I'm sitting by a window seat, my mind is not focused directly at the table. It's not even focused
yeah,
directly at my wife. I am looking everywhere, including outside.
it just means that the food there is so good. The soup of the day was so beautiful
Super
that
madness.
nobody was taking their eyes off the food to see the guy with the axe. They were like, "Look, I'm about to eat this food." Um, so anyways, from there he goes to meet with the publishing company, and we have the publisher is the famous actor Charleston
Charlton.
Charles Hesserton. Hold on, I
How
gotta look this
retarded
up.
are you? I thought
Uh,
I was the only fucked one around here.
no, you know what? It's one of those nights where I laid in bed but didn't actually go to sleep.
Oh gosh.
Um, was not feeling good. Um, let's see here. It's all right. I can edit around this though. All right, here we go. Okay. Oh, wow, I was right. Okay. So the publisher, the head of the publisher is Charlton Heston, who's actually a fairly famous actor. And basically him, and then we also meet Julie
Linda Stiles.
Carmen, who's playing Linda Stiles, who true blue horror fans will recognize her as the vampire from Fright Night 2, the head vampire. Which she did a great job in Fright Night 2 also.
How
So
many people are actually going to recognize her from a movie nobody has seen?
well, that's why I said true horror fans. Because if you enough people have seen Fright Night 2, I feel like horror fans have for sure. So yeah, they're basically saying that Sutter Kane has gone missing. We don't know where he
Been missing
went.
for about a month.
He's been missing. We need our book. Go find him, find our book. And basically, John Trent at first doesn't really agree to it. He's just like, all right, whatever. And then she recommends to him, hey, why don't you go read some of his books and see? And he's like, oh, do you have an audio version? Which is
That's
pretty
fair.
funny for 1994. That's pretty good because I don't even know. Like, obviously, audiobooks is all the rage now, but I don't think books on tape were that popular back then. So,
Yeah, the great thing about audiobooks, I will say, is I can play games while I'm listening to the book.
oh yeah, you can
Uh,
drive while listening to it. You can work out. The multitasking ability of audiobooks is nice, but it doesn't have the same feel as reading.
yeah, but my eyes don't read well.
Oh well, okay. Oh, audiobooks. I mean, like I said, for a lot of people, that's the way to go. All right, what do you think about the maybe one of our first creepy scenes is well, first he walks by the alley and he sees the cop beating up the guy,
Right.
which
And we
itself is
also get a slight clue
kind of weird,
that
but
something is behind the Hobbs End poster.
yes. Um, but the freaker thing is when he has the dream sequence of him
So,
walking by the alley again.
so I just want to bring up so they mentioned in this movie that Kane's books seem to have an effect on people.
Mhm.
Now, is it the more impressionable, possibly not so mentally well off, like they're depressed kind of people? Or is it
Mhm.
people like, say, me and you who are so into horror that, we could actually believe in that kind of thing could potentially happen?
So the most likely thing is that at the beginning, it starts off with it's going to affect the most vulnerable people, the most people that allow in their mind, basically, it's going to affect them more. But as it gets stronger and there becomes more popular and more books, even the stronger minded people slowly start to get affected. That's why someone like John Trent would be like, he's skeptical hippo. So he's going to be like one of the last people to actually buy into this, even if the world is falling apart around him. He's still skeptical hippo. But probably, yeah, the weaker minded, not weaker minded, but the more vulnerable, let's say, those first couple books are going to get them. But then the series has to keep going to pick up popularity, momentum, and then you can get the stronger minded people.
Sir, skeptical. Now I can't talk.
It's spreading. It's spreading like the damn Sutter Kane books.
Skeptical hippos are not reality.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, but in that scenario where the whole thing is based on belief, the skeptical hippo has an advantage because they don't believe shit. They're like, this is all. So in this world, someone like him is going to be like everything he sees is going to take with a grain of salt and think it's bullshit. So there's
So
an
let's talk
advantage
about
there for
these
John Trent.
nightmares because
Freak.
first he sees a demonic cop beating up the guy,
Yeah.
and then he sees the axe dude being axed alive by the town by what we've come to find out as the townspeople of Hobbs End.
Yeah.
Then he wakes up to to the police officer right next to him, and then he figures out, oh, Hobbs End's a real place.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I
like,
mean, this is a lot going on, and I'm just like, I like, I mean, like, dream sequences sometimes can be very cheesy in movies, but this to me actually was genuinely, for the most part, creepy and not like cheesy for the most
Oh,
part.
I'm just trying to figure out because maybe I just didn't pay too much attention to the books themselves. But was there like a line directing how to cut through the covers of the books?
It seemed like there was a little bit of a montage of him putting it all together, but I think there was something he read, but then also I think the point of the scene is also more that like he's so good at like being an investigator that he puts it together in a way that
He
most
didn't
people
just
wouldn't be able
put the
to.
cover together and all of a sudden, boom, New Hampshire is where he's at.
He made a map out of the covers. So I mean, again, we're supposed to believe that he's one of the top fraud investigators in the world. Maybe not in the world, but we're supposed to believe he's very good. So I mean, he goes Detective Sherlock Holmes there and puts the clues together. So
Well,
um,
his Watson is Linda, and since they're driving cross country, not really, because I think New Hampshire is not that far from New York. But yeah, I'm sorry for the whole Linda driving thing. After she hits somebody, would you really trust her to be back behind the wheel, or would you take over because she's probably tired?
well, I don't wanna skip over the best scene in the movie, which is the bicycle scene.
Well, that's what I'm
Uh,
talking about. She literally hits the kid.
yeah, but we gotta actually talk about the scene, what happened. So, because to me, this is the freakiest thing in the whole movie because everybody can relate to if you're driving by yourself on an empty road at night. Even I get kind of freaked out if I drive by and see, like, people walking on the road if it's, like, at night. But if I was in the other lane, saw, like, someone on a bike, I would immediately be, like, on guard, like, it's kinda weird." But passing that and then seeing the same person up the road again,
But
I don't
older.
know, the first time I saw the movie, I didn't remember much about it later on, but I always remember that sequence. And then crashing into them, that's just is like a classic all-time horror scene, the way that's set up. Really freaky.
The only thing
I
freaky about it was the kid was the all the makeup to make the kid old.
No, the idea was freaky. The suggestion that this kid is trapped in a time portal or something where he can't actually get out.
Some
So
kind
he's
of loop because he was even saying like he won't let me leave. He won't let me leave. So I'm thinking, okay, so you got trapped as a kid, and now all of a sudden you're an adult. So apparently the world is already ended at the point of you being an adult, and all of a sudden you're just
doomed to ride that road up and down the road on a bike. So it's funny because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of little things here that by themselves could make their own little separate stories if you wanted to dig deep into it. But they're just little
well.
small, get little small snippets. So
Well, it actually kind of makes sense because if you pay attention to like the stands that the books are on, it literally states that the Sutter Kane books are anthologies. So they're all
uh,
different stories to an extent, but it sounds like the only ones that aren't is Hobbs End and soon to be the In the Mouth of Madness.
so what we're gonna see in the city they go to, Hobbs End, is basically, yeah, like different stories, different characters from different stories, all in this town, I guess, basically. Um,
So it's kind of like
I
It's kind of like Stephen King because remember Stephen King likes to put all of it, mostly all of his books, all in Maine.
right. Now to get back to your point, would you trust her to drive after she hit somebody? I think, uh I think Trent woke up and just, like, he was sleeping all the time, so he woke up and just like, "What the hell?" And then because he saw the kid on the bike just get up and ride off, he didn't treat it like a big deal. He was like, "Oh, the kid's okay. That wasn't like anything serious." Um,
But look at her face. I mean, all he had to do was look right at her face and be like,
oh,
"You're not good enough to drive right now, lady."
well, they both start the trip. He's probably more skeptical than she is, but at the beginning of the trip, she's not, like, believing on anything supernatural either. But by the time they get to Hobbs End, she's on board with something freaky going on because all this stuff that happens to her on the trip. The other cool thing is the driving and looking down and you're in the sky. I would be too freaked out to drive at that point. I'd be like, "Okay."
Well, that's the other thing I got is so in that kind of situation, would you continue having your foot on the gas?
Nope.
Because apparently, I'm guessing she did because you see the wheels still rotating, so it's obvious she's still driving.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm like,
Of course, if you stopped, you'd probably fall.
well, there's an argument that yeah, basically, if you see that below you, you're probably like, let me drive the hell past this, whatever this is. So there's that argument. Um, come to find out though, she's just in a tunnel that basically transforms everything from nighttime to daytime immediately. But they're at grandma's house, they're at Hobbs End, so it's all good.
Which I will say something about the sign because of what we know of this movie. What would actually be pretty neat if you notice at the bottom of the sign it says "Enjoy your stay," which every town says that.
Mhm.
What would be neat about it is if it says "Enjoy your story."
Mhm. True,
I just thought
absolutely.
that would have been pretty cool.
Good point. Um, so anyways, they get to Hobbs End. Hobbs End, at first it looks like the damn town from Children of the Corn. It looks almost like damn near abandoned when they're like just outside and stuff.
I mean, it's
Um,
not.
no, there's some people there. They're just all they've all gone crazy. So, um, and you have a Lin Shay lookalike as the hotel receptionist, in my opinion, could easily be mistaken as Lin Shay, in my opinion. But I
She
guess
looks
it's
nothing
not
like
Lin
Lin
Shay.
Shay to me, sir.
All right. Well, you are a Lin Shay expert, so I'm gonna defer to you on that. But we find out basically that hey, she is a character from the book, and she's gonna end up killing her husband. But even then, uh,
so,
John Trent's not believing.
so apparently, we're supposed to believe that this whole thing is supposed to be us obviously watching what the Mouth of Madness book is.
Hmm.
The thing I'm wondering is because when Trent is talking to Linda, he's saying Mrs. Pickman is a crazy old woman in Hobbs End who, chops up her husband in a coleslaw. So I'm
Yep.
thinking, like, so is he somehow living both Hobbs End horror and Mouth of Madness at the same time?
The whole thing is so tricky because like so when they go to the church, they have the mob of people that come there. Basically, again, another side story in this town is that apparently, almost like Children of the Corn, the children were taken over first. So the children are all evil now, and the parents now it's starting to affect the parents. So again, it's like Children of the Corn. That movie's happening in this town also at the same time.
Well, we finally also get to see Sutter Kane in all his Doberman badass glory.
He looks like a little bit too much of a badass for me to think that he's a famous horror author. Uh,
What are you talking
because
about?
I
Sure
because I know it. I
Stephen
know we
King
know it's.
looked that badass when he was his age.
Have you seen what Stephen King looks like?
No, not
Oh,
not an older, not older. I mean, I've seen him now, present day. He's an old man, but
well, look at him as a picture younger too, right? This dude looks like. I mean, no, I don't know. This dude looks
so
like an
so
evil
I'm gonna
badass.
go ahead and bite my foot off per se because when me and Amelia were watching this movie and I first saw him, my first thought went to, is that the guy who played Lazar and Abigail? That makes no damn sense. He looks so just like how Mrs. Pickman looked like Lin Shay to you, this guy looked like damn Lazar from Abigail. And I'm just thinking to myself,
I mean, I think mine makes more sense though. I mean, Abigail, 2000. That's from last year.
yeah, that's why I was so
This movie's
confused
30
at
years
first.
ago.
I was so confused at first. I'm like, damn, that guy looks damn good for his age if he did both these movies.
Well, no, this is actually an actor named Jurgen Prochnow.
Yeah, it's kind of hard
And
to say those German names.
in terms of other things he's been in, well,
Abigail was
he's
not one of them.
he's known for The English Patient, Judge Dredd, and not the recent Dune movie, but a Dune movie back from 1980, the original Dune from 1984.
Hmm.
So yeah. Well, I want to bring up that mob because then later on, when John Trent's at the bar, he's gonna see one of the guys from the mob who ends up.
The one kept calling for his son, Johnny.
Yeah. So the guy gives a very insightful line where he's like, "I don't remember what came first, me or the book." So it for all these people, it begs the question of, did they start off as regular human beings, and then as the worlds kind of came together, Sutter Kane was able to take control over them as if he was writing their characters? Or from the very beginning, were they characters written in a book? Because he's like,
So,
"I don't know what came first." So
so I'm gonna say with all the characters in Hobbs End, I'm gonna say the books came first.
because the location.
Yeah, mainly because of the
It's
location.
not
Because
it's
at
not
the
it's
same,
it's not a real town, yeah.
right, especially when you find out at the very end, no one else has ever heard of Hobbs End.
But we can surmise that even just based on his knowledge from his profession, that John Trent was a real person, a real insurance fraud person who Sutter Kane at a certain point was able to take over him and write him as a character. But I'm assuming he was a real person with an entire backstory, unless Sutter Kane also was a previously an insurance fraud person and knew enough to write that
So,
character.
so
So it's
that
tricky.
actually brings up the point. How much are we supposed to 100% believe that Sutter Kane actually did have John Trent from beginning to end of this movie 100% his own, or how much of this movie did John Trent himself actually still contribute that Sutter Kane then had to write into his book,
I Most of the movie seems like Sutter Kane is able to control everything around John Trent
but not him particularly?
because we have to remember that John Trent hasn't. The other part of it too is that okay, the world's slowly going crazy and people are affected, but it seems like the newest book is the new one that's going to really set the world on fire in terms of like, if you've read the new book, that's going to be the one that's going to make everybody like the whole world crazy, basically. Um, because John Trent he read some of the older books, so maybe that was the gateway to Sutter start to get a little bit of control. Remember, in the beginning of the movie, as part of his research, he reads some of the Sutter Kane books. So maybe that gave him some control over him, but most of the movie seems to be like he's just acting like a normal insurance fraud person would act in that situation.
Along with
Um,
all of his reality talk.
you remember, so once Styles is convinced that hey, this is the book happening because she's read the advanced copy, she tries to convince John in the hotel room, and he's still like, no, there's no way. He's still a skeptical hippo, even though he's seen crazy stuff happen at that point.
Well, I mean, he brought up the whole thing about Mrs. Pickman. Like
Mhm.
that little old lady, the worst thing she did is put her husband's dentures in a pile of poo.
Yeah. Now, interesting insight given too, like it really gets like glossed over pretty quickly was that she admits that this was a scam. Like they did send him out, Sutter Kane out as a part of a publicity stunt, but and they hired John to make it look good, but she was like, "This is supposed to be a wild goose chase. We're supposed to come here and find nothing, and we're actually finding all this stuff." So she knows that this is something shaky because she's like, "Hey, this was a scam." Like,
So
so
that means that they did plan on John Trent then cutting up the books and finding out that they must be in a town called Hobbs End in New Hampshire? Or do you think that was just luck of the draw?
I think they wanted the story of Sutter Kane's missing. We sent someone out to go look for him, hired somebody. They couldn't find him. And then something happens where Sutter Kane reappears with the book. And then the book just is a bestseller. So she's going on the trip with the idea of like, we're gonna drive to somewhere in New Hampshire, we're not gonna find Hobbs End, and then we'll drive back. So she's not expecting to find anything because she knows this is all like a BS trip. So when she actually comes to Hobbs End, again on the rewatch now, I'm watching and thinking, oh, so she knows this is a scam. So when she gets to Hobbs End, she has to be like super like, whoa, this is a
Well,
publicity stunt. How do we get to Hobbs End? So that makes the rewatch again fun too because you can watch her and be like, she knows the whole thing's a scam as she's going there.
well,
So
here's another weird thing. So she mentions to John, before she becomes evil, let's skip to the end, and then tries to, what I'm assuming is, have sex with him. So does that mean that Sutter Kane actually had like some weird form of a happy ending for this character? Like
For
maybe if
John?
John took if what would happen if John decided to actually have sex with her right then and there?
Well, I mean, listen, if they're we haven't read any Sutter Kane novels, so we don't know if they're the kind of stories that end with the protagonist winning or if they're like dark endings where the hero loses. If you wanna say in this movie, I mean, I guess John Trent is the hero of the
Well, sort
story?
of, but I'm just wondering if,
I don't
depending
know.
on John Trent's decisions, that Sutter Kane says Sutter has power over everything around John, but not him himself. So
Mhm.
his decisions could potentially change the book for the better instead of worse.
I don't what you're getting at, I don't think so though, because in terms of a happy ending, I think in the story Sutter Kane is writing, because they always throw in like a romance. Maybe in the story he's writing, he's like, okay, I do want a little bit of a tease romance between the two, and then at the end he's trying to force it with her,
But
but
like
but
I said, it's
we never really get them on the same page romantically. So it's like
no, because
it would be
you can
for the
see
audience, it would be weird.
yeah, you can see he has an attraction to her, but she's never shown that. And then all of a sudden, she's all over him, saying, "Let's skip to the end." It's like,
It's only when it's clear that Sutter is kind of controlling her actions that and you can see then basically with her, it's a little bit trickier. She might have been a character created solely for the book because she had a purpose to get John Trent on this trip to Hobbs End. So she had a clear written purpose by Sutter Kane, and that's why maybe he was so easier able to then write her out of the story.
yeah, I was
So
about to say, because now, granted, we're also supposed to believe that he's already fully written this book. I'm assuming he wrote a draft of the book, and what we're seeing is supposed to be the final draft of the book that then gets published. Because she keeps saying, "It's like I've read this, I know how this is going to go." I'm thinking, but we clearly
he's
see
written
Sutter Kane constantly writing the book.
he's written a rough draft because as we see, he's able to change it as he goes. So he's able to so it's like if he's written it, he's written like a first copy, but not like a final copy. And then you get the weird thing too of when John Trent returns back to reality, the publisher is like, "Hey, you know, you got the book and you gave it to us a month or
Months
two
ago.
ago." So the timeline's all over the place. So I don't know, like that's what I'm saying. The movie's like almost like for a movie, this is one of those stories where like, man, TV show with like 8 episodes to flesh it out, amazing. But it's a lot to get across in like 2 hours. Um,
Well, Kane makes Linda evil, and then she apparently gets super strength to throw him out of a door.
there's some just funny scenes with her, like when her head gets or detached and stuff like that. It's just very funny stuff somewhat. But
No,
also, the whole I do love the whole I mean, I guess Michael DeLuca writing this makes sense though, because it does have that Freddy's Dead thing of like, you're driving in a town, but you can't get out of that town.
and then
That's very Freddy's Dead-ish. So
well, yeah, and then you get monster Mrs. Pickman cutting up her. Why was her husband naked?
I don't know. Maybe they had some fun time and then some dead
And
time.
then she handcuffed him to her ankle. Was it possible she caught him cheating, and that's why she turned him into coleslaw?
Or if you think Sutter Kane is that kind of book, then if his novels are those kind of books, so
Either way,
um,
we get this weird little interaction with the rest of the town with the townspeople coming after him. He tries to Linda hits him, he knocks her out, and then we get Linda Spider, which was some really cool effects here.
yes. The one creepy thing scene I want to mention too is just the when Linda first goes to Sutter Kane's place, you have the little kids outside. They're talking about, oh, it's Mother's Day. I don't know why that seemed like that was creepy to me too. So
I'm not gonna lie, I thought
um,
the kids were just gonna maul her and kill her right then and there. To be honest with you,
it did kind of feel to me like maybe a scene was missing. They didn't do a good job of communicating to me like what she was trying to accomplish by going to Sutter Kane's place. It sounded like she was on some kind of mission there to do something. But why go to I mean, I thought she would have drove out of town almost or try to get out of
well,
town. But she goes to her cousin's place. I know that theoretically he's making her do that, but it seemed like she was on a purpose to try to stop him or something. But
Well, what
then
I'm trying to figure out is what was the whole point of the kid saying it's mommy's day?
just to creep
Like,
us out. Those kids are far gone at this point. So
but yeah, the Linda spider. What I definitely like about this effect is not only obviously the whole contortion bit, but also when her head is split back, you actually see like her neck was stretched and it kind of all the bones were kind of broken outwards.
yeah. For the most part, the effects all pretty much work for the most part. It's mostly practical effects. They mostly all work here. Um, well, I mean, basically, yeah, the main thing is that, Sutter Kane wants John Trent to read in the book, but he refuses to. Um, Eventually, he'll go through this basic portal thingamajigger.
Well,
Um,
he goes through this portal thing, and all these monsters are coming through. The real question I got is, so the elder ones at this point need John Trent to take the book to the outside world in order to finish their plan.
mhm.
What would have happened if John Trent just stayed there and let the monsters rip him apart?
I don't know. They would have to come up with a new plan then, and they've invested a lot into John Trent at that point. So,
I mean, I know obviously, because at this point we're supposed to believe that Sutter Kane is now nothing but a memory or fantasy or any of that, because he even said, "I can't hold him back for very long. Get out of here." And then he rips himself open, showing the other side.
right. I don't know. Like I said, it's very interesting. So, I'm gonna have to finish watching because I got the Blu-ray. I'm gonna have to finish watching. There's 2 commentary tracks on the Blu-ray from John Carpenter. There's one he does with the producer and one he does with like the cinematographer. So I need to watch both commentaries because those might be where like he actually gives some more insight on what he was thinking with different scenes.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, when he gets back to town, essentially the publisher is like, "Who's Linda?" And he's like, "Oh, well, he wrote her out." And then also the fact the book's already been delivered, so the damage has been done. The people love the new Sarkane book, which means all hell's about to break loose. Um, Back to the hospital, the mental hospital.
You didn't talk about how he got there.
Oh yeah, wait, what did happen?
Yeah, he killed a random kid because the kid was
Oh
walking out reading the Mouth of Madness book, eyes
yeah,
already bleeding out.
he took the axe to the kid because now he's thinking, "Hey, I have to stop this from progressing by taking out the Sutter Kane fans."
Which is kind of funny because, when the kid was reading, he looked up at him and goes, "You liking the book?" "Yeah, sir." "Well, you know what's going to have to happen now." And the kid just sat there like, "Oh, man."
Yeah. And then there's a line from Linda earlier in the book, not book, earlier in the movie when they're driving that I think is supposed to kind of foreshadow the ending. And it's like, oh yeah, all right.
"What are you doing?" "Cookies." "I thank you. Now, do me a favor. I love you. Get the fuck out."
I'm gonna say that to the next time I get an Uber Eats order. I'm gonna get the food at the door and be like, "Oh, Chinese, I love you," and I get the. It's
Careful,
gonna
you
be
might
like,
be married the next day.
it's gonna be like, okay, as long as you tip me. I was like, it's like, you don't get your
All right,
damn tip.
so
Just get off my porch.
sorry about that, but time back in.
Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, so yeah, basically, although me editing with you suddenly having cookies in your hands is gonna be kind of funny. Yeah, we cut to the edit, and you're like, it's like I got a bump mid sentence. Uh, all right, I'll wait till you're done eating your cookie.
Just
When do we eat in the middle of the conversation?
That would be fucking hilarious, as you mentioned.
All right, hold on. I'm actually at a loss of what I was talking about.
So
All right,
confused. We were talking about Linda foreshadowing the book.
oh
The
yeah.
ending.
So basically, Linda, when they're talking in the car earlier on, she said something that kind of foreshadows the entire movie, I think. and it was something I don't remember exactly, but it was something like if um if the
The
rest of the
books
world is
scare me more if the world becomes like Sutter Kane's vision of it.
it might be in the same place. She says that, but and then she also says something like she's like, what would you do? Because if the rest of the world acts a certain way, then you become the crazy person. Even if you're the sane one left, to the rest of the world, you become the crazy person. So in this world that John's in at the end, it's like he sees himself basically as like the sane person now, but compared to the chaos of the rest of the world, they see him as a insane person. Um, granted, he did kill a guy, uh, but there's one thing. Okay, so then also obviously our monsters now can basically come and take over this mental hospital. So we assume all the staff, everybody gets killed there, and John's able to walk straight out scot free into the world.
So I'm wondering. So you see the book all over the place. So I'm assuming the Dr. Sappenstein, I think was his name,
Yeah.
decided to give the book a read. Because I'm
Yep.
assuming what we see as monsters, because we're kind of still seeing his POV, is he's seeing monsters, but it could actually just be people killing each other
Hmm.
due
Interesting.
to the insanity of what that book is causing them, which would
Right.
actually be pretty neat. But overall, then all of a sudden he's this. They leave him alone. Is it because he's not fully insane yet? Because he doesn't know the ending?
Right. So basically, we go back to the very beginning when he first saw Sark at the beginnings. He told Sutter Kane, he said, "This is a terrible ending," and he said, "This is not the ending. You haven't read it yet." That could mean a couple of different things, but one thing it could mean is that basically, until John experiences the actual end of the story, we can't have the end of the story. So he has to go to this movie theater and see the entire thing play out. He has to read the story or watch the movie, I guess in this case, for us to end the movie, to end the story. So
Well,
it's very meta, let's call it. So
I got a question for you. What if our main character could have possibly been insane this whole time
yeah.
and just finally realizes it at the end by watching the movie because apparently the end of the movie allegedly is him screaming, "This is not reality. This is reality," and all that. What if maybe he was insane the whole time? Everyone else was still sane. He was the one causing everything, and and then at the end, when he finally watches that movie, he finally realizes, "Oh, I'm the insane one. I'm the one who caused all this," which I guess in the context of even if everything still happened the correct to the world, he's still the one who caused it all.
Uh I was following at the beginning. It felt like you were saying maybe like it's like it was
All in
all in
his
your
head.
head, all in your head. All in
Yeah.
your head makes perfect sense, but the only part that wouldn't make sense with that is that something did happen at the end where he was able to walk out of the hospital. So something did happen to the outside staff. Otherwise, because if it's all in his head, to me, it's like he's telling the story from the mental hospital. And at the end, he's like, nobody believes me, and just the movie ends. But the fact he's able to walk out because something did come and kill all those people, let him out. Other than that, everything else could definitely be in his head. But for this movie, the in the head thing, that's definitely the more boring route to go. The more exciting thing is that the world is ending and that all this stuff really happened. Is much more exciting than
So the
the in
weird
the head thing is a cop out. It's a cop out ending.
no, that's fair. But the weird question I got is, since they couldn't get, I guess, kill John Trent, was he the only one that needed to know the ending before he fully dies, or does that mean anyone who may have not have watched the movie or may have not read the books, are they safe from what's going on?
I don't know. It seemed like only him because once once he's crafted as like the main character, it just seems like he has to go through the thing for everything to take place. I don't know.
Hmm.
Somebody else, some random book reader doing the same stuff wasn't gonna do it. It's gonna have to be him, I guess. But again, for this end when he goes to the movie theater and watches it, and he basically watches that. He's watching the movie we're watching. Really good ending. It reminds me. It made me think a lot of Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which came out on this around the same exact time too. But also very, very meta. If you think deeply about that, if him watching the movie is that made him go insane, you could think really deep and be like, hey, we're watching the movie. Does that mean it's all that this is all a plot for it to come into our world from the movie we just watched?
Well, I mean, we did.
Very interesting if you think about it. So,
to be fair, we did bumble our way through this episode with our melted brains from recording so late. So maybe it did work.
I'm watching The Mouth of Madness twice this week. I do feel like my brain is different today. So, so I would caution our viewers. I mean, watch every once in a while, but I think if you do multiple repeat viewings, like in 1 week, maybe there's
2 days. 2 in 2 days.
Yeah, maybe that's an effect because I do feel like it's in my head a little bit. So, anyways, I also want to give a shout out to, as always, I mean, for every opening credit, you always see, music by John Carpenter, of course. The music here is fantastic as usual, but especially the rock music we opened the movie and end the movie with the same music. And it just gets you like kind of energetic as the movie starts. So it's pretty a different choice for this kind of movie. So you could add like
what I did the minute I heard it, added it to my Spotify.
Yeah, I gotta look it up on YouTube actually for sure. So yeah, basically I would say that with this movie, I'd recommend it if you are going to watch it twice. Because I don't think you get the full appreciation watching it once. There's enough in here where it's one of those movies that to me takes multiple viewings to really get it on like the high level. And probably whenever I watch in the future, I will understand it more and continue to pick up on things. But I have to agree now, seeing this came out right before Village of the Damned. And Village of the Damned decided almost as like, because In the Mouth of Madness is considered the last good John Carpenter movie. And then people like start Village of the Damned as like the star of the downfall, I guess. And I like Village of the Damned, but I do see a big difference in quality. It seems like a lot more care and effort was put into In the Mouth of Madness than Village of the Damned. So I will say that. I can see the difference in quality, but that could be the script, that could be the editing. I don't know what it is, but yeah. But I do prefer this one. So,
be honest, same here. But as always, folks, when you want to go insane, remember there are easier ways to do it than to somehow force yourself into a Sutter Kane novel.
Right. Can you recommend any?